Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Conscious Body Conversations. I'm Jessie Lucas of Embodied Movement Training. This is a unique episode because today we have Gayle Gunn, Space Utilization Specialist. And you might be wondering why I am having someone from kind of the space organization field talk about conscious body topics. Well, here's the little personal story for you. So I moved almost a year ago, right at the beginning of lockdown here in New York. And one of the things that I got with my new house is a home office. And that is something I have been like dreaming about for going on a decade, having run a couple of different businesses myself, running a household, having single parenting 2 kids, then adding 2 more kids to the mix in a blended family, working from wherever kids weren't, wherever laundry wasn't. You guys, having an office was like, or a space, just a space that I could close the door, that I could make a kind of magical space for my own well-being and my creative work in the world, was a dream come true when we got this house. But it was a blank slate, and I do not have an eye for design. What I do have is a desire to feel really, really good in the space that I have. And having lived in some wonky spaces, I know how much that's kind of like made my soul cringe. So I already knew how much of a difference it would make to create a space that really fueled my soul. In comes Gayle Gunn, Space Utilization Specialist. So that's my little intro story. One of the things Gayle and I both connect with is this outside in approach. And Gayle, I'm going to ask you to share a little bit more about this because we're coming off of probably an entire generation of like, change your mind, change your life, change things from the inside out. And while that is well and good for some situations or for some of us, especially if you're stubborn like me, sometimes it takes mechanically, practically, physically changing things from the outside to start putting new data on your mental and emotional experience. That is exactly what happened with me. That is exactly Gayles Approach. She has a wealth of knowledge. Gayle.
Yes. Thank you so much, Jessie. It's such a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much for having me. I really do. I love how you talk about your space and how you describe your space and the uniqueness that is what you and I do. I recognized very early on in my own particular process, excuse me, I have a little one here eating apple. Go ahead, grab, and he dropped it. Go grab it. Grab it off the floor. That you and I both, excuse me, real world problems.
You and I both have
I know, the advantage of live, that you and I both have a very unique approach to what we do and the way that we like to see things. And I realized when I first got started that my approach was like a reverse psychology approach. Instead of recognizing that what's happening in our space is a result of what's happening internally, I present a way for people to just focus on their space, and we talk about their space and what's happening in their space, or what they want to have happening in their space, and then figure out how to bring that to life for them. And so it's an outside in approach, because we look at, whether it's a kind of, an example, your space was more of a blank slate, there wasn't much there, and we got to create from there, or whether somebody has a room that's just so full of clutter or physical items or things like that. Like, we really take a look at what's happening in the space and use that approach to then figure out how to create a space that inspires them, motivates them, gives them that feeling that they're looking for. And the roadmap to that is where we come into the internal side.
That is so brilliant. So I can relate, because when I'm helping people with movement stuff, a lot of times they know there's this like emotional weight. They know there's these tangles. Yeah. They know there's this mess inside, and they've probably tried a whole bunch of different things, whether it's meditation or, therapies, whatever, some sort of inside out approach.
Yeah.
And I know when you can change the data from the mechanical movement of your body, that can soak in. And I know that's, it doesn't end at your body where you are in space. It expands to your space. And I think a lot of times when people are trying to make some changes to how they really feel. You know, my work with embodiment, how do you feel? Do you feel present as yourself? Do you feel true and aligned as yourself? It doesn't stop at the food you put in. It doesn't stop at how you move your body. It expands to the space around you. And not only does that does that influence, like, it really, it's part of that. It's a nutrient almost that you take in.
Well, and I think, it's interesting because, that's one of the things that our life always has a lot going on. I mean, that's kind of the essence of life, is that you have your work-life balance, you have self-care, you have family, you have friends, we have obligations, and the inside is probably always in some way going to be a little messy, so to speak. And so it often isn't until the mess translates into something that people can physically see, or like their space. They're like, I don't know, like what's like something's happening. I need something different. And the space is what we can see. The space is what we can feel. The space is what we can touch. And so, excuse me. And so, she's telling me to be quiet. So the spaces where, like, when people are looking for something to shift or something to change, they're, even if it's something that needs to happen internally, we need to look at the space first, because that's where the tangible result comes from. That's where them being able to, like, see something happens. And so that's part of the reason for taking a look at the outside first, is to see what's happening there. And then being able to use that to figure out, excuse me, you're being very rude. So it's about being able to take a look at what's happening in the space, and then use that to help them transform their space in order to change their life. Yeah.
One of the things, I know you have a really unique ability, and I know you really helped me with this, is taking a moment to kind of like look at the relationship between you and the space. I know when we were creating this space, you asked me to do some things that I never would have thought of. Like, before we started putting things in it, sit in the middle of the room.
Yeah.
Just kind of like, sit facing this direction, sit facing this, and kind of feel the space. When I started putting things somewhere, you gave me permission to kind of put it there. And maybe it doesn't stay there. Maybe it doesn't stay in the room. Maybe it goes to someplace else. Maybe it has a completely different function. I mean, different things. And what you made me do, you didn't make me do, what your suggestions caused me to do was to really notice my sensations, to notice how did I feel when this item was over here versus over here. How did I feel, like, as I'm sitting up the room, if my body is facing this way for, whatever activity, like where my desk is going. Oh, the desk, don't even, that's a whole nother conversation. But
it's a whole different interview.
A whole category of sensing myself that I wouldn't have necessarily thought of on my own, and to really realize, and I do this now, I notice, even walking around my entire house, we've hung some art since, and I really like notice how I feel in relation to whether it's a piece of furniture, a piece of art, something like that, and noticing how deep of an impact that really has. And it doesn't seem like it, I mean, it seems like something a lot of us just overlook, like, it's just the space we live in. We got to function, right? A lot of people think about their space, like, we just got to get through the day.
Yeah.
But how beautiful and deeply nourishing to actually have a peaceful relationship with your space.
I like to think of it as having a connection with our space. And it's interesting. And, like, I like how you walked through that. And the exercise that you talked about is that I oftentimes, or most of the time, when I first start working with someone, the very first thing that we talk about, or the thing that we do, is that exercise of, like, associating with our space, like really tuning in and tapping into how our space is making us feel. And one of my favorite examples of this particular exercise, in addition to what you had described, was I was working with someone else who was doing a home office. And she was actually converting it was a pool room, like a, off the side of the house pool room that she was upgrading to be an office. And I asked her, like, what her style was, what she was interested in. She was like, like the Moroccan, very bold, very energetic colors, like, pizzazz, and like all these different things. And that's really great. Like, I love it when somebody knows what they want. But I did kind of get the sense that she may be out of touch with what the space needs or wants to be to help her in her business. And so I took that inspiration with me, but I invited her to do the exercise, and she took the weekend. She sat. I said, get in the middle of your space and think about, like, just tune into it. Just become aware of what's happening around you, and maybe what's happening inside of you as you sit in your space. And 2 days later, I said, how'd it go? Like, how was the exercise? And she said, it was so interesting. She said, I really thought I knew what I wanted. She goes, but after doing that exercise, she said, I realized, she said, I have so much chaos going into my life. I need this place to be a calm, relaxing, more Zen environment, muted tones, soft, subtle textures, and things like that. A lot of greenery, like very nature oriented. And she said that exercise was the most fascinating thing she had done to really tune into her space. And that's part of, that's the outside in approach is helping people to become more aware of their environment. And I think we just kind of, I don't know that necessarily disregard it, but it's like, yeah, it is what it is. It's my living room. It's my office. It's my kitchen, my bedroom. Like, so what? And it's kind of like, well, a lot more there, as you know, from working with me, that there's a lot more to our space than what we think. And just walking through someone's space with them helps to open their eyes and to become more aware of what their space is actually, how their space is impacting or affecting their level of energy, their mood, their kind of their attitude, their behavior, like all those different things. So, like I said, it's helping them to tap into their space and be aware of.
And like you said before, that underlying stress level. I mean,
Yeah.
When there is that discord, it's funny, before you said awareness in telling that story, that's exactly what I was thinking. And one of the themes I'm seeing in these conversations is this connection between awareness, which, I think that's another thing we've all kind of been talking about, awareness, mindfulness, we're all kind of talking about it, but what's the practical action that's happening?
Yeah.
Okay, you have awareness. Well, now, what outside thing are you doing?
Yeah.
When, what are you doing with the data that you collect from your awareness? That story is really incredible, actually, that there was a completely different vision for this person's pool house office space.
Yeah.
You think one thing, and it makes me think, like, where else are we doing that in our lives? Where else do we really think we know something about ourselves or our desires, what we want, what we envision? And maybe there's some discord there. Maybe that's not truth. Maybe that's not aligned. And then how is that from the outside in affecting us at the level of, stress, anxiety, disembodiment, not feeling like ourselves? That's brilliant. I want to honor your Kylezilla there, and I want to
I know
that this is I want to keep these short and sweet and digestible. And can you give us, I mean, that example of that exercise is one great thing, but is there anything else, like, especially because people now, a lot of us are still working from home or spending more time in our space or more time with other people, family members in the space. And I know that people's relationship with their space is different right now.
Yeah.
What do you want to send us home? An aha, a takeaway, an exercise, a thought, a question, and where can we find you? I highly recommend talking to Gayle, having a strategy session with her, or just even a conversation just to illuminate what you might be missing in your relationship with your space. I can attest it's worth it. So give us a takeaway and let us know where we can find you.
Toddler distractions aside, as you referred to, Kylezilla, he has a tendency when I do interviews from home, and many of us, or those of us with children, can probably relate to this. He is doing his best to distract me, telling me to be quiet, and currently sitting on the table, doing his thing. So anyway, real life, this happens. But thank you for your patience with him in the background. As far as the space goes, we've, with last year being what it was, many of us, all of us, were sort of forced into confined space and really had a chance to look at, like, our space, kind of like, okay, it's time to get organized, or it's time to, renovate. I think, home renovation, the Home Depots and Lowe's were open through the whole entire thing because people were doing projects, like, but what I would encourage people to, do is to take a look at their space. How are they set up? Are they able to function? Do they feel good when they're in their space? Does it when they sit down, do they feel relaxed and rejuvenated, or do they kind of like sit there in tension, like anxious, like, oh, like something's got to change or something has to happen? And to reach out, just to have a discovery call, even to talk about the space and what's happening and what's taking place, and to kind of have that thorough investigation, so to speak, of uncovering how the space is affecting, how your external environment or how your space is affecting you internally, and the things that you can do to start to shift and to change that. Because that's what people are most surprised by when we actually take a deeper dive into their physical environment, not even in the internal aspect, what comes out of like where something came from, and how, what, I never really liked that in the first place. I didn't think about that until we had this conversation. And that's what I get a lot in the calls that I have with people. It's like, I never thought about that. So I want to, the takeaway is to invite you to think about your space a little bit differently. Like I said, whether it's a blank slate, whether you've been in it and you're sort of happy with it, but you're not really sure, or whether it is, maybe more cluttered or disorganized than you'd like it to be, I can help on both sides of that spectrum. I get a chance to do that. So you can find me on social media. We can share the link to my Facebook page if you'd like. I do have a group coming out where I'm a Facebook group looking to do some more of what I call like the organizing secrets, the ninja stuff that people like need to know or want to know. That's different from what other people are talking about or doing. And then we can share a link to my calendar if you'd like to schedule a call. We can just get you started and get you going. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And it's worth it. It's worth it to kind of make some peace there. And I'll tell you, I'm looking forward to this ninja trick group. I can't tell you how many times I texted pictures to Gayle, and even little things like, why is the table on this side of the couch when it should be on this side of the couch? And like, I put it on that side of the couch, and oh my gosh, like,
yeah.
Or, like, where does the rug go? I mean, these ninja tricks that if you don't see it, she does. So we will include
placement is a huge thing. Yeah. And I want to give Jessie more credit than she gives herself for the pulling together of her space. She actually knew what she wanted. She knew she wanted that I've arrived feeling. She knew she wanted it set up in a certain way. We did work on a little things here and there, but I love the pictures that she sent. Like, what do you think of this? Like, I want this, or I did this because I know it's what I want. Like, that's what, like, that's what I love about what I do, is people like finding that magic and that inside, like that outside inside thing. Like, oh, I want this for my space. This is perfect. So yeah, it was a pleasure, Jessie. Thank you so much.
It was so much fun. It was so much fun. Well, thank you, everybody. I hope you got some good nuggets from Gayle. Please go follow her, find her, talk to her. And this, bringing it back from the space into the body, this kind of like decluttering, reorganizing, finding, get those ninja tricks. Yeah. That's what I do as far as movement, not just, my background in teaching yoga, personal training, but really organizing the space of your body. So if you want to have that conversation with me, you can find me at embodiedmovementtraining.com. Love to talk nerdy stuff with you about that. And tune into the next episode. Thanks, Gayle. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, everyone.